Welcome to the Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health podcast. I'm Maya Ratla, medical astrologist, astroherbalist, and green witch. I was diagnosed with endometriosis at 19, and I was told I would never have children. I healed my body through the power of herbs, alternative health practitioners, energy healing, and more. At 28, I had the baby they said I would never have, without any interventions. I refused to believe that my body was not able to heal itself. Along this journey, I stumbled across medical astrology, and it resonated with me so much. I started down the path to learning this unique system that had been used for thousands of years in the medical community. I now help other women heal their bodies using their cosmic blueprint, the unique blueprint that every person has embedded in their DNA from the stars. This system helps me see what's going on in your body on a cosmic level and exactly how to help you give your body what it needs to heal itself. We are all uniquely and amazingly designed, and when we learn to work with our design, love ourselves for how we are designed to function, and integrate the cosmos into our lives, I truly believe that we can see true and lasting health brought into our lives. If you are ready to change your life, heal your body, and learn to deeply love who you are, this podcast is for you. Come join me as I discuss medical astrology, astro nutrition, astro herbalism, health, wellness, spirituality, transformation, and so much more. I'm so excited you are joining me. Hey everyone. So it has been a weird week, and this is why an episode did not come out as scheduled. And I just really kind of want to talk about this week and what's been happening and what kind of made it a weird week. Just kind of update you on everything that has been going on. So, kind of a life update, I guess. First things first, last Friday, we discovered that we had left some very important things back on our property and our home base, and we needed them ASAP. So, in the middle of launching my new website and my new offerings and just everything that was going on with like that week, last week, which was great, by the way, it was absolutely a great time, super fucking fantastic. If you're on my newsletter list, that's going out today or tomorrow, and it'll announce the winners again. I did announce them on social media. We all sent emails, but just so everybody can see who won the giveaway. So, back to last week. So, we decided like Thursday of last week that we had to get there, we had to get this stuff, and we had to get back to where we're staying in Arizona because we had things going on. So we got up and we left Friday morning at 7 a.m. from Arizona, and we drove all the way back to New Mexico. We stayed the night in Albuquerque, got up the next morning at 7, drove the rest of the way to our property, which is like 3.5 hours from Albuquerque, depending on traffic, and if there's any snow in the pass that we have to go through, because sometimes that shuts the pass down, and then we have to go the long way around. So, thankfully, the pass was open, so we were able to go through there. So, we got to the property around like 11, we head inside, we grab everything that we need, and then we leave again at like 11:30. We were there for like literally just 30 fucking minutes. It was insane. And we drive all the way from there back to Arizona. We, at midnight, decided we just needed to stop. My husband was driving, and he was like, I can't go anymore. And I was like, that's fine. All of us were like falling asleep. So we stopped, spent the night somewhere, and then got up and drove the rest of the way in the next day. So Sunday afternoon, we finally get back to our spot in Arizona, and we are utterly fucking exhausted. We got what we needed, though, and that was great, but we're utterly exhausted, let me tell you. And I spent all the rest of the day, Sunday, basically just lying in bed. Canceled the monthly member chat for my group that was supposed to happen because I initially said, yeah, I'll do it. And then like the hours started passing and I was like, I do not have the energy. So I apologetically canceled it, explained to everybody that it was going to have to be moved, and we moved it to this coming Sunday instead. And I was like, okay, because I just literally needed a break. Well, then Monday was the new moon, and the new moon was in Scorpio, and I have 5 placements in Scorpio in my chart, which I know you guys know if you listen to my podcast for any length of time. And so I was really feeling that energy, not only like the spiritual and mental side of Scorpio, but like the physical side too. Scorpio rules the colon and the nose and the elimination pathways and the reproductive, systems of males and females. And I usually, almost always, it's been this way since I was like a teenager, I ovulate on a full moon and I bleed on a new moon. So then I'm going through my bleeding phase on top of all of this. And it's the Scorpio energy, and I'm really feeling the reproductive system side effects, and I'm feeling the nose side effects. My nose is just like running constantly. I'm feeling like the spiritual side effects of just, Scorpio, a new moon, which is already like a time that we use to enact like transformations, right? And then it's in Scorpio, which is all about transformations. So basically, I got like nothing done until like Wednesday, Thursday, I started feeling a little bit better and was able to do more. So that's not the weird thing of the week. Like, I'm used to having low energy and on my bleeding phase / new moon time of the month and just really like taking it easy. The weird part was that on Friday, while driving to home base, I really felt that there was like somebody or something like right there with me in the car and really was like pushing to talk to me. And I mean, they were being pushy, right? It was not like, hey, let's chat when you have a moment. It was like, we need to talk and we need to talk right now, and I'm not leaving until you do that. So when I talk to my spirit guides or whoever else is there wanting to talk, usually the way my communication with them, I'm very clairaudient, and the fact that I hear them, and I say that in quotes, you can't see me, but I say that in quotes, in my head, and I don't really necessarily hear like a voice in my head. I actually physically see like the words in my brain that they are saying to me. And then I also have this when I'm talking to them, I not only see the words, but then my hand wants to write on its own. And so I usually get a pen and a paper, and then a lot of times when they're talking to me, I'll literally be writing, without really even feeling like I'm writing or having any control over it. It feels like writing down what they're saying to me. So this is mainly how I communicate with my spirit guides. I respond to them either out loud or in my head, and then they continue talking, and then, I write it all down. And this is how I get the majority of my messages. So I grabbed some paper and grabbed a pen and kind of closed my eyes and settled in a little bit and was like, okay, who's there and why do we need to talk so urgently, right? Because it's just weird. I've never had any of them be that pushy usually, so I figured it was a fairly important message, and hot damn was I right, it was. So I'm not really ready to reveal exactly what the message was because it's very personal in nature and isn't really one for the collective, but let's just say that Hel, Norse goddess of death in the underworld, she rules Helheim, came to me. And it's not unusual for goddesses and gods of death and whatever to come to me. I've had Hecate come to me a few times, and other things like that. So I wasn't really oh my God, what is the, goddess of death want with me? Because it doesn't scare me, I guess, or bother me. So the message, though, I don't even know how to explain to you the fact about how transformative, I guess I want to say. I don't know. This message was. It was very personal in nature. It was very much hey, this is another one of your soul purposes that you're not doing and you need to be, kind of a thing, right? So I've always felt that since I was like a little girl, that one of my sole purposes literally here was to be a healer of some sort, help people enact healing in their bodies, right? It's why I went into nursing initially, and it's why I left nursing eventually, because I wasn't actually helping heal anybody. I was contributing to a capitalistic system that doesn't care about people, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So that's when, I started doing my own thing and have my own business, and started doing medical astrology and helping people really find true healing and enacting it in their bodies, right? And I've been doing this for years, and I love it. There's also another side of me that I don't really talk about much to anybody, but I've had this ability since I was little. I mean, like, for as long as I can remember. And it's the ability to, like, I want to say predict, but it's not a prediction. It's just a knowing of, like, when someone's last day is on Earth. Like, I can get down to, like, the day and within minutes of the actual time. Like, I just know that this is going to happen. And I can't tell people how I know. I just do. And throughout the years of being a nurse, that gift kind of got honed a little bit, because unfortunately we see a lot of death and dying in nursing. And it got to the point where, like, even if it wasn't my patient, I could predict down to, like, the minute when a person who is, actively dying was going to pass. And so many people will be like, oh, that's because, you've been a nurse forever and you know the signs and symptoms. But I'm telling you, there'd be times when they seem completely, like, fine, in the sense that, like, it wasn't going to happen for a while. And I'd be like, no, they're gonna go tonight around, like, midnight, let's say. And everybody would look at me like I was crazy. And then sure enough, they would pass at, like, 11:50 or 11:55 or, like, 12:02, right? And then I'd come to, back to work, and I say, like, oh my God, how'd you do that? You, like, there was no signs that this was going to happen, and yet you predicted it, right? And so I've had this gift for a really long time, and I don't think about it, I guess, because to me it's normal. And I don't tell people this, like, I don't go up to anybody and go, oh, by the way, like, your uncle's going to pass at, midnight on Thursday, because, people don't usually want to hear that stuff, right? And for good reason. Death is scary to so many people, and it's something to be, like, feared and kind of worried about, and nobody really wants to think about their own mortality, right? And the fact that we're not going to be here forever. So I just don't talk about this gift. But unfortunately, Hel, being the goddess of death, she doesn't care if I don't want to talk about it, because that's what she wanted to talk about. And so she came to me and had a message for me about that gift. And it's been a weird week of processing and reaching out to, like, my spirit guides and trusted friends and advisors to, like, talk through the message and how I feel about it, and just really sitting with the knowledge that I gained from talking to Hel. So I've been quiet. It's put me behind on everything. I'm sorry if you're waiting on anything from me. It's coming, I promise. It's just this week has hit me hard. And I'm struggling a little bit. Like, I try to keep this podcast real and vulnerable and be honest that, life isn't always perfect, even for those of us who are the healers, and stuff. And that's kind of what this week was. It wasn't perfect. It's been a struggle. There's been a lot of other things going on in, like, my husband's life and stuff that are, coming up. And so it's been a weird week. So yeah, I wanted to put this podcast out and just let you know that regularly scheduled episodes are coming. Don't worry. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this because it's hard in a way, but it's not in another. And everything that I've gotten from my spirit guides and from my friends and mentors and, everybody that I've reached out to has been basically all saying the same thing. That you can be a healer and also be, like, the person who understands and knows death and when it's coming and can predict it. and help people, pass peacefully to the other side. So it's just been a week of coming to terms with all of that and like that dual nature. Like, not coming to terms with it, I guess truly embracing, that's what I want to say. Truly embracing that this is really who I am, that I have that dual nature, right? And since I've always wanted to just be a healer. It's, and if you look at my chart and you're thinking about numerology, like 5 is like the number of like health and the number of healing. And I have the number 5 through so many things in my chart. So I was born on 11/5 at 12:05 a.m. I have 5 planets in Scorpio. I mean, that right there is a 555. Like, yeah, so I just have always felt that this is what I'm destined to do, right? If you look at like my North Node and South Node, same thing, right? Like, my karma from my past life was that I didn't feel like I actually was able to help people enough, and so this time around, it's like, I want to really help people. My Chiron is in Gemini, which, Chiron is the wounded healer, where it talks about like where you feel the wounds the most, right? And the place that you really need to work on feeling like loved and accepted. And Gemini rules speech, and I've always really felt, even as like a child and all the way up even into adulthood and honestly recently, the people just don't hear what I'm saying, or they don't want to hear what I'm saying, and no one cares to listen to me. And so there's a lot of like wounding around people not actually caring about anything that I say, right? And this podcast has actually been a huge part of healing that wound for me, is because I'm getting so much feedback from people who are like, oh my God, I love what you're saying. I need what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. It's really helped me. And like, knowing that people do hear me, right? And that what I'm saying does need to be said, and people do need to hear it. People want to hear it. It's not just that they need it, but they want it. People are reaching out to me like, yes, give me more, right? And so that's been a huge part in healing that. But I do have those 5 planets in Scorpio, and now that transformative energy, right? Because Scorpio has a light side and a dark side. The light side is, it's a healer. It's someone who wants to help others, that brings health and wellness. And then there's the darker side, which is very much about like death and transformation in not always a good way sometimes, right? The darker side is just that. It's a darker side. The shadow side of Scorpio is being caught up in like being selfish about that and keeping your gifts to yourself and using your ability to see deep into people and like manipulate them with it, right? And hurt them. So the light side is the healing side, and the dark side can be the hurtful side of Scorpio, depending on, how people are expressing their Scorpio sides, right? Whether they're in their low or high expression, as we talked about in previous episodes. So yeah, go back and listen to the Scorpio episode because it was great. But I don't know, it's weird in a way and good in others, but it just feels a little weird, like fully embracing and understanding that I do have this gift and that it's okay to have that side and the healing side. They're actually 2 sides of the same coin, right? Because from death comes life. Like, look at nature. Things die. Let's say like a forest fire rages through a forest, and that kills so many things, right? The trees, the plants, even animals can't escape. But from that, give it time. It might take a few years. It might take a few decades. But from that death, that horrible amount of death, comes life. You see new trees and plants coming forth. Baby animals are born. And the forest gets rejuvenated in a way that like it wouldn't have otherwise, right? And so sometimes we need that death to things to bring healing. And which is where I do a lot of my work with medical astrology, is a lot of what I see sometimes is not physical causes of these problems. It's literally like spiritual causes, emotional causes, energetic causes that are actually causing the symptoms and the physical symptoms you're experiencing. And we work deep on fixing those, right, as well as working on the physical side of things too, of correcting nutritional deficits and making lifestyle changes and drinking more fucking water like we need to, and all of that, right? So I do work in that transformative side of dying to things that aren't serving you any longer and are actually impeding your physical health. So I do both already. And they are two sides of the same coin. Because if without death, we don't get life. And without life, we wouldn't have death. Like, they work together. They're necessary. Death is a necessary part of life. And it's scary to a lot of humans, but it doesn't need to be. Death is not the end. It's the beginning for a lot of things. And it's the beginning even for you again, right? Your physical body dies here on this earth, yes, and you are gone, and it is horribly sad because people grieve and they miss the person that they knew you as. But your soul, your spirit, what makes you really who you are, and whatever, that goes back out into the universe, and it waits until the perfect time to come back and do this all over again. And you've done this for millennia, and so you're not actually, like, dead completely. You'll come back in some other way, shape, or form, and a lot of times that happens before the family members that remember you have passed, and so they will see you in other things, and from your death, life happens in that family. So many times you'll have like a family that has multiple deaths, and then like some babies are born, or a new relationship blossoms, and there's so much life that comes from that. Changes are made, people move and get new jobs, and they blossom in other ways, right? So from that horribly tragic death, there is life that comes back from it if you look for it, right? And you don't get stuck in that grief cycle that is so easy to get stuck into, because it is hard. And I am not downplaying that at all. I have lost family members. I've lost pets, which I know some people say is not the same thing, but to a lot of people it is. And I think it needs to be acknowledged that pets are just as much a part of our life, and it's just as devastating when they die. And from that, though, comes other things. Newness comes from it, and sometimes it's hard to see that because it's easy to get stuck in that grief cycle. And it's understandable, because our human bodies that we are in don't have that infinite memory that our spirits have of living this life before and coming back and doing it all over again. We don't remember that. We don't remember that we're going to see all of those people again, whether it's in the body we remember them in now or not. And I think we've lost so many things in this modern society. Death is such a clinical thing now. It's like, yes, let's, medicate them with these strong medications, which I am not against at all. If a person is in pain and they're suffering, let's mitigate that suffering. Nobody should have to die in a way that is horrible and painful, right? If there's any way to avoid it, let's avoid it. And I agree with that. But because of that, it's really removed us from what death looks like and how death happens, and it's removed the families from the part that they used to play in that. They used to actually have people that would come to the bedside. It was typically women who were healers in the community, who also would come, and they would perform ceremonies and rituals to help the person. They would apply herbs and use different ointments and teas and things like that to help mitigate the pain. And the families were intimately involved in this, and there would be rituals to celebrate their life, but then also help them cross to the other side, and ceremonies and all kinds of other things, right? That gave that dying person peace so that they could cross peacefully to the other side. And we don't do that anymore. Now, some cultures do. And working in New Mexico as a nurse showed me a lot of that. Unfortunately, we had some Native American patients that did pass while I worked there, and their families would come to the bedside. And I mean, when I say their families, I mean the families. There was a lot of them, 20, 30 people sometimes. And they would come with a shaman or a spiritual leader who would do a ritual and a ceremony. And the hospital was like, yes, come do this, because they knew that it was important in their culture that this happened, right? And then when the person did pass, those families would take that body with them. They didn't go to the morgue. These bodies didn't go to somewhere else, the funeral home. The families took them. They would wrap them in this, they have a whole ceremony of like preparing the bodies. Then they would take them and they would have whatever ceremonies back at their homes over this person before they were buried. And it was just so beautiful to watch that and be a part of that and honored. Oh my God, it was such an honor to be able to experience that and see how they embrace death in such a different way than like so many of us do anymore. Because they still honor those old ways of ceremony and rituals to help everybody in the family, start that grief process and, all of the stuff that comes with knowing that the person is passing. And so, with that message was basically something similar that Hel was saying, that we need people who do those ceremonies and rituals, once again, for the places that are missing them, right? For the peoples that have forgotten that this is what we used to do and that it used to make the grieving process slightly easier. And so I've been thinking about that and what I want to do with that, if anything, but I feel like I need to do something with that, right? Like, I need to. So, I've been thinking about it, and we will be working on that, and we will see what happens. But I just kind of wanted to get these thoughts out and be vulnerable with you guys about the fact that, yeah, life's not always perfect, not even for me. I get behind on things, shit happens. My stuff doesn't always come out on time for my podcasts and even my newsletter sometimes, because it's just life. And again, I'm, a one-woman show doing everything. So, and honestly, my business is me, and I am my business. Like, we are intimately connected, right? My business as a healer means that I have to honor when my body needs rest, and when I need a rest, that this means that my business gets a rest too. Sometimes your businesses need a rest as well, and it helps reset things, and it helps get things moving in the right direction. I mean, hell, I pulled a card this morning that basically was like, rest is imperative. You don't need to rush down this path. I pulled a rune then. I was like, yeah, let me see what my runes are saying. And it said the same fucking thing. That, life is like a journey. Business is a journey. It's not a race to get to the end. That, yeah, you may be feeling like you're meandering or moving too slow, but you're going to get to the right ending at the right time when you are supposed to. And that moving slowly down a path is not any worse than racing down the path. And racing down it is not going to get you anything, right? You miss out on so much when you're just running down the path to get to the end, and you miss out on, like, scenic overlooks and things that you could have stopped and done along the way. The rest periods that your body needs. And then when you get to the end, you're so exhausted you can't enjoy it, right? So basically that's what Spirit is telling me. That it's okay to try to figure out what I'm to do with this message, take my time, rest is needed, and that, yeah, if things don't come out on time in my business, that's okay too. Yeah. So I'm just sitting here overlooking the beautiful mountains that are all around us, and just embracing the fact that it's okay for me to have this dual nature, be a healer and someone who understands death on an intimate level and can help bring peace to families when someone is passing. So I'm not 100% certain what I'm going to do with this message yet. I'm looking into some options and things that I can do. there is in the United States, there's an organization called Hospice, and it's an organization that works on a like physical, emotional, spiritual level with supporting dying people and their families. They always need nurses, but I'm not sure how I feel about going back as a nurse. Honestly, the thought of just going back to anything as a nurse after I retired this year and like washed my hands of it, I don't know if I could do. So that's an option, like something to look into. Suss out how I feel first. Just kind of go from there. So yeah, this is a different podcast episode than I was expecting to come out this week. I was expecting the planets overview to come out, but you know what? I didn't finish doing everything that I needed to for that episode to come out, so it didn't, and that's okay. So yeah, I think that's everything I really wanted to say. Yeah, quite the life update there, y'all. So, I will keep you updated on whichever direction I go. I wish you all a wonderful and happy weekend, and I will talk to you next time. Love and light. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it. You can find all relevant links to today's show in the show notes below. If you loved the show today, please subscribe, follow, and leave me a review. I love to hear your thoughts, and it helps me know what is a hit and to make more of that content, especially for you. If you want to learn more about me and how I can help you, head over to atlaastrology.com. There you can sign up for a medical astrology package, download my free sun sign in your health ebook, read the blog, and so much more. If you want to connect more outside the podcast, follow my Instagram channel @AtlaAstrology or join my Astro Connection community, the link to which you can find in the show notes. Until next time, love and light.